Hello, my most amazing artists. Today you're going to be getting your clay fish or creature back from the kiln. If you made one last week out of clay, it went into the kiln after it dried for a week and went a physical and chemical change. The clay is no longer clay, it's turned into something called ceramic, which is what we call clay after it gets fired in that big clay oven called the kiln. Your clay was heated up about 2,000 degrees for about 12 hours, and finally it's turned into something you can keep forever. It's no longer a gray piece of clay that's very breakable, but now you have something that you can keep, and if you were to drop it in a bucket of water, it would not turn back to mud or clay. It would stay exactly how it is. It is now permanent. The only way to break it is if you were to drop it or accidentally hold it by its tongue or maybe one of the fins. So make sure you're being extra careful and holding it by the bottom and walking very carefully, making sure it gets right onto your tray and doesn't move after that. You always want to hold it over top of your tray because if you held it over top of the floor and dropped it or somebody bumped you, you'd be very upset if it broke. So today we're going to be painting these with neon paints. So you can paint your fish or your creature with neon paints using a water cup and a paintbrush, holding that paintbrush on that little cushion and dancing like a ballerina on the tippy toes, never ever smashing down, scooting on the booty. I'm going to start with my lightest colors first. So I'm going to make bright yellow neon eyes. So I'm starting with the lightest first. That way I can paint the darkest after. By starting with the lightest, it makes sure that I have room to add the darkest over top later, and I don't have to worry about those colors mixing together. Remember, you do have to wash your paintbrush in between colors to change your color. Otherwise, you're going to end up not making neon, but it'll make very muddy colors, almost like brown. So you always want to give your paintbrush a very good bath in between your colors. So now I'm painting the other eye in bright yellow. You'll also notice that your paint is drying faster than usual. Even though this is tempera paint and it already has liquid in it, you don't have to add water to it, so that's why you wipe off your brush. You just use it to change your color. But it dries really fast. It's actually not the paint, it's the clay. The ceramic is going and sucking up all of the paint. It's going all into the pores and absorbing the paint very quickly. So you're going to be able to paint this and then even maybe get a second layer to make sure you get your paintbrush into all the cracks and crevices that you might have added when you did texture or details. You might even find yourself having to dip into the water so that your paint spreads a little bit better on your clay piece. You don't want too much water though, or it won't be very neon and glowing. You want to make sure that you use a good amount of paint and always wash your brush in between. So if I want to switch to red after I do the pink tongue and paint the inside of the mouth red, I gotta wash my brush, give it a really good bath and swirl around it. And now I'm gonna fast forward the video as I paint. Of course, I'm taking my time because I want to make sure I do my best work. So this is something that I can keep forever after it's dry. So I'm going to paint everything, even the inside top of the mouth where I can't usually see it. I'm going to paint every little part of my clay today. I'm going to be very careful using the pointy part of the paintbrush as I paint my details or get close to those eyes that I already painted. If you really need a smaller paintbrush, I could probably bring you one, but do your best to just get that paintbrush in a really good hair day or on its tippy toes by dipping in the water and then wiping on the lip of the cup, and it should be able to have a point to get into all those little detailed parts like the fins or the gills, around the eyes, and even the bottom. Now on the bottom I add a lot of water because I don't really care if it's a bright blue color. I just want it to be painted quickly so it's not white anymore. But you always want to hold it by a part that you haven't painted yet. So notice I'm holding it by the back, but this is also a very sturdy fin. I'm not holding it by the littlest part. Like if I had like an antenna or a very, very small thin fin, I'm holding it very carefully by the bottom. If you did happen to have something that might have broke off in the kiln, don't worry. If you got it back today, paint it separately and we'll glue it on later, another class after both are painted and the paint dries. It is possible to glue pieces back together if they break today. However, if you drop it and it shatters into a million pieces, we cannot glue that back together. So make sure you're being very careful. Now, if you want details like stripes or spots, those are going to happen last. So I'm going to paint my fish the main base colors. I was thinking Finding Dory with the bright yellow and bright blue here, but then I'm going to go over top of it after with those details. You need to make sure your paint dries a little bit before you add on designs like spots or stripes, things like that. But it does dry very quickly, so you'll be okay to add your details last today. I'm going to use some spots of hot pink, but notice The brush didn't really work, so I'm using the back of my brush to make those perfect spots there. That's a tool that will work very well to make some dots. You can always use the back of your paintbrush as long as you rinse it off and wipe it with a paper towel after, so the next person that uses the paintbrush or miscue washing it doesn't get paint all over her hands. All right, when you're all done, it's going to get left on your tray, and you can wipe your hands with a paper towel, put the lid back on your paints, and then it'll have time to dry so you get it back next week. Next week, we might even dip it in a glitter glaze so it gets all shiny and glittery. I can't wait to see your awesome fish. These fish even do something special when we turn out the lights and turn on a special light. You'll see what it is now. Have fun today, artists.